You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
Terminou naquele Schwarzenegger. Gol!
Va a pegarle Ronaldinho Gaucho. Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
And welcome to Soccer Today for May the 2nd. Into May already. The weather hasn't quite turned yet. We talked about that yesterday, but hopefully the rain's supposed to stop today, Kevin. Probably tomorrow for you guys. Hopefully by the time the game kicks off here in Toronto on Wednesday, it'll be summer, right? It'll be summer.
It'll be summer-ish. It'll be a little warmer, but the sun is out this morning. I feel a little better. My case of the Mondays has gone away, as did Monday. And now it's Tuesday, and you know what, Duane? Champions League today. Yesterday we had actually a fun game between Liverpool and Watford. Liverpool got the win with an amazing goal in the extra time of the first half. But yeah, Tuesday, Champions League, Madrid, quite a day today.
Exactly, the Madrid derby. We're going to talk a little bit about that in the second block. It is historic in many ways. Well, it might be historic in the wrong reasons for Atleti. If they were to lose this tie, they would become the first team in Champions League history to lose 4 consecutive years to the same club. There's some other clubs up there that have played longer straight. The Chelsea-Liverpool battles for a long time there were ones that a lot of people will remember. 5 years in a row they played in the Champions League, but certainly 4 years in a row for Madrid's is a very fun little thing, and I'm looking forward. I'm going to try and get everything done, trying to get all my ducks in order so that I can slip out around 2:45 today and maybe have a late lunch and watch that game. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat, Kevin. But people in St. Petersburg today they also have to slip out for a while to cast votes for a referendum on basically what it is. It's
that's
not on
St. Petersburg, Florida. That's Tampa, St. Pete's area. We're not talking about Russia here. We're talking about Tampa, St. Pete, just to be clear.
Exactly. Yeah,
we are international, Duane, after all, right?
Yeah, Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg. We have many Russian listeners. They have to vote today in the referendum. Now, a lot of people are calling it a stadium referendum. It's not really quite that. What it is it's giving the city permission to negotiate a long-term lease for a new waterfront stadium if the Tampa Bay Rowdies win the Major League Soccer franchise bidding race. The Rowdies owner, Bill Edwards, he would pay for the entire expansion of the stadium. There is no public money on the line here, like zero. So there's really no reason for anyone to vote against this proposal if you live in Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, because there's literally none of your money on the line. It's surprising to me that they have to even go through this. I guess maybe,
probably has something to do with zoning and the land, probably.
Yeah, you could probably work some cynical thing up in your mind if you're a paranoid voter. And this is my worry anytime you put a vote to people that has anything to do with this. They tend to not be, and how do I say this delicately, Kevin? Voters everywhere, and this isn't an American thing, this is an everywhere thing. Voters everywhere tend to not think.
On both sides, we're saying. Well, you know what? I think it goes down to human being. We just love to be on a team, don't we? We just love to be against somebody. We just love to be on one side and have somebody else on the other side and say, well, no, we're the good guys and you're the bad guys. No, you're bad guys and we're the good guys. No, right? Maybe. I don't know. I'm confused now. Maybe I'm the bad guy. You're the good guy. But we don't we just love to do that as human beings?
Yeah, it's an emotional thing when they vote, and especially when you're talking about something like stadium funding. And I do look, the editorial, all of the press out there, the editorials are all saying this is a win-win. There is no reason to vote against this. You all should vote yes. It'll probably be a low turnout because it generally is, but so you would hope that the yes voters out there, the supporters of soccer in Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, will be really out there, getting people to the polls, getting your vote out there, because really, I believe in most of these sort of referendums like this, you get like even 5,000 people, even 2,000 people out there, you can make a big difference in something like that, because the voting turnouts are usually pretty low. But as I said, there are a lot of knee-jerk people out there. And again, this isn't specific to Florida or Tampa or anything, that will just vote no against anything that they can, because it's just easier. And you just assume, oh, there must be a twist in here. It's too good
What's
to
the
be true.
catch?
I've
What's
got
the
to vote
catch?
no. And that,
Yeah, no, I agree, Dwayne. But with the big footprint, we could say that this bid has had since its launch. Even before its launch, I remember Dwayne seeing in Montreal an ad next to a street talking about MLS to St. Pete and that logo and that hashtag, right? So with the big grassroots organization that St. Pete and Tampa Bay and the with the hashtag and the campaign, what they had, maybe they could actually get the vote out, hopefully, for the future of soccer in St. Pete, Tampa.
yeah, look, it's the same stadium basically. They're expanding where they are, but if you look at the drawings, and you always have to be careful looking at drawings because you can draw pretty things, but it does look like it would be quite a beautiful sort of expansion, adding the roof there, sort of modernizing it a little bit. It's such a beautiful location. I would love to go down to a game there. Actually, it's right on the water. Tampa is such a gorgeous city. I don't know if people, like, you always think Florida and you have an image of Florida in your mind, but every time I've been to Tampa Bay, I've always been very impressed. I mean, I've only ever really been down in the very nice part, mind you, but it does seem like a gorgeous place, and this seems like it would be a great addition to it. You're looking at basically a 3/4 covered stadium, a perfect size for MLS. It would be, I think, a great place. I think a lot of road trips would be planned to early in the season, especially to Tampa Bay. If Montreal or Toronto or Vancouver even were to be playing Tampa Bay first off in the season, I think there would be a lot of supporters groups going, that seems like a good one.
It reminds me of the Champions League game in Mexico against Pachuca early, like it was in late February a few years ago, 2015. And
Yeah.
I wasn't part of that one, but a lot of people were really happy and took their entire week vacation to go to Mexico and enjoy the weather before the game. So, no, I can totally understand that for us that are stuck with winter still when the MLS season begins in early March, maybe a trip to Florida or Atlanta. We wish that would happen next. But yeah, those are fun trips because you enjoy the weather and you have a little sun, a little tan when you come back, hopefully with 3 points.
Yes, and I'm sure that there would be a lot of people that would be taking a quick little peek at the Major League Baseball spring training, and also the NHL schedule at the time, to see whether there might be a trip down to see the Lightning or even the Panthers that might be twisted into a nice little week in Florida, which would end with hopefully 3 points for the team that's not from Florida at the end of it. But no, it's the more I look at these bids, and the more, if this vote goes through tonight, then I increasingly believe that Tampa Bay has to be among the favorites to get one of those first two spots. In fact, I would say that if Tampa Bay gets this vote through tomorrow, I would almost be willing to bet that Tampa and maybe Sacramento or maybe San Diego, depending on how MLS decides to go that way, would get the first two nods, and that would come pretty quickly. And so, in fact, I think Tampa Bay, if they get this vote today, wouldn't even shock me if they jumped the gun and named it right away.
Wouldn't be surprised. Tampa Bay would fit the profile, and still one of my early favorite. San Antonio, slowly but surely, Duane, as well, with a very interesting project down there with good money. Same in Detroit, right? The ownership speaks volume of the strength of a bid, and you do have in Detroit, in San Antonio, strong possibility of ownership as Cincinnati as well. So those are interesting. And for the vote, though, Duane, so there's two possibilities, right? There's either it will go through or it won't. So it could be a situation just like St. Louis a few weeks, almost a month ago now, where unfortunately, and the lawmakers said no. This time around, there's not as much money involved in that decision. So hopefully the vote goes through, or at least it's an easier way to get the vote through, or at least get a close enough vote where the discussion is not over and you just need to approach it differently.
All right, this is from an editorial in the the Tampa Bay newspaper don't have the name in front of me. What's the Tampa Bay newspaper called? Anyway, the Tampa Bay newspaper.
The St. Pete Times.
There you go. The St. Pete Times. I'm going to read this right from this. This is their wording of this. Well, Edwards, that's the owner, proposes building an $80 million stadium on the existing footprint of Al Lang. That's the name of the stadium, using only private money. The design preserves open views of the water, does not disrupt existing streets, and is similar in height to neighboring Malfrey Theater, which I guess is a building in the area. The ballot language guarantees no public money would go towards the new stadium or the purchase of an MLS franchise. I think that's worth reading again. The ballot language guarantees no public money would go towards a new stadium or the purchase of an MLS franchise, which is estimated $150 million. As required by the city charter, for the long-term leases on public waterfront land, voters are being asked to authorize the city to enter into an agreement of up to 25 years to make Al Lang the home field for an MLS team. If St. Petersburg is not awarded a franchise, no stadium would be built. So that's, again, if anyone takes the time to read that and doesn't have a paranoid view of government, there really is literally no reason to vote against this, Kevin. Like zero. They're not being asked for anything.
And there's no liability right there because of the last sentence you mentioned, where if we don't get it, we won't build it. So it's not like I go back to my Quebec City hockey analogy where they've built a brand new shining stadium, and right now it's just draining money, and it drained public funding. Millions of dollars of it, hundreds of millions of dollars of it, and right now it's a white elephant, and you don't want that. And the fact that if they don't build it, if they don't have the franchise, maybe takes that liability, that risk away.
Yeah, you don't want to see the white elephant for sure. Although they will have continue to play in the USL, you would assume, but nonetheless, I do. Again, I would be almost, I wouldn't say shocked, but I'd be mildly surprised if Tampa Bay isn't one of the four. This is just a sense here. They're got the historic name. They have an established team that's successful right now. They've come to play ball by going to USL, so they're doing it the right way that way. They have a good, wealthy owner that seems committed. It's a natural rival for Orlando. There's just so many boxes that you're checking. The only caveat to Tampa Bay is that Miami situation. Do they want 3 teams in Florida? That's the question that I do have. Do you think that they could, 0 to 3 in less than 5 years? Is that something that's realistic? We saw it up in the Northwest.
It's still difficult though from 0 to 3 because don't forget there's this latitude there, right, just above that Georgia-Florida limit. So you have
24-hour drive though, so it's close to 24 hours drive.
Yeah,
so
true, but just geographically speaking, it makes sense if you go into 28, 32 teams in the future. We'll see, but I still have difficulty thinking Miami will ever happen. So Tampa, Orlando, those 2 teams in MLS in Florida, I think 2 would be probably the most realistic way for now. Maybe if it goes with 40 teams, that will be different. And maybe if Miami gets his act together, which all signs point to no. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's 24-hour drive, actually. It's 24-hour bus ride. I took the bus from Atlanta
to
Tampa once.
It's 24 hours from here to Florida. Non-stop. Yeah. So it's
still a significant drive between the two. I mean, I think sometimes we that don't live in Florida sort of miscalculate how big the peninsula is, right? So you're pretty much driving into the Caribbean when you're driving to South Florida. So yeah, alas, but the only other issue I do have with Tampa Bay is if you look at the success of the Buccaneers and the Rays. Success is a strong way to put it, right? They do.
I was going to say which success. I don't remember seeing success in any of those franchises. There's
the Rays have done okay on the field, but in terms of off the field, they've been a bit of a disaster. In fact,
the Buccaneers have been doing great off the field, but on the field, it's been a disaster. So, but it's NFL, and you can't compare anything to the NFL, Duane. I don't think the NFL is comparable to your North American landscape, at least in sports. It's something different in the NFL. I have difficulty even saying it's sports just because of the immensity of the whole. For lack of a better term, it's like a big, immense circus. It's a machine that I don't even know how to explain it into words. The immensity of it.
it's a circus in all the good and bad ways is what the NFL is. I mean, I am a fan of throw ball. I have been my whole life. I covered it
That's
at
what I
the
played at the
college
highest level. So
yeah, so it's not something. I'm not one of those soccer guys that dismisses the sport. I watch the NFL all the time. I even watch CFL sometimes, and I watch Canadian college and American college a little less, but certainly I'm a fan of that. And yeah, it's a circus in all the good and bad ways. That's the way to put it. But we'll see. I like the Rowdies coming in. It's more than me thinking that they're a good bet. I'm kind of cheering for them a little bit now. I think that they would make a worthwhile addition to Major League Soccer, Kevin. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll switch gears. We'll look at the Champions League.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
And welcome back.
you know what,
Yeah.
Duane? I'm putting $2 on Madrid for today.
Just two.
Well, okay, Madrid's winning today or drawing, but Madrid's getting a result.
All right. Are you betting on Real Madrid or Real Madrid?
Well, I'm not specifying which one. I'm just putting money on Madrid.
All right. That's a little joke that not everyone always gets there, but I spent time in Madrid. I have told this many times before, but I did. The reason that I have a soft spot for Atleti is because I happened to be in Madrid the day Atleti won the Europa League in 2008. And I sort of got a sense that day, and traveling around Spain. I've been to Spain 3 times. It's a country that I love a great deal. Traveling around that part of Spain, sort of Madrid and kind of the Northwest, you really get a sense of like the People's Club versus the rich people's club, or there's a more derivative way I could put it. And Real Madrid really is an international club that sort of, it does have fans there, to be clear, but Atleti really is the club that the blue collar, that the working class people take to that stuff.
Hotels are booked when Real plays. Atleti is the people that lives close to it. People will flock in from around the world at the Bernabeu, but at the Calderon, even though now it's going to, I think it's the last season, right, of the Calderon?
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, this will be the second last game. The Calderon, the game against Real Madrid, the second last game played. So the Calderon in the last game against Real Madrid. Yeah.
So that's something special too there, but it's not people from around the world that goes there. It's the fans take ownership of that stadium.
Yeah, and that's pretty normal around the world when you have a big club and a smaller club. Although inevitably the smaller club is still pretty big. And Atletico Madrid is a big club. I mean, just like Manchester City was always a big club, they just weren't a worldly, like a worldwide club, right?
They weren't elite, but they were a top club. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, any second club, and like Torino is still a big club. They play in Serie A all the time, but they're not a worldwide international club. Juve is. Like there's lots of examples of that around the world. I think in recent years under Simeone, Atletico has really stepped its game up and has sort of fulfilled its potential. And that's the other part of it, too. If you look at the history of football in Madrid, I mean, Real Madrid's always been there, and they have had the support back in the day, of Franco and others. That's where a lot of the, sort of dislike of Real Madrid comes in parts of Spain right now, is that it's perceived as Franco's team. And he's not very popular amongst certain Spaniards. Nonetheless, not to get too historical about this, or political about it, but nonetheless, that's where it comes from. They've had the advantages through there, but Atletico has always been a club that if they ever could just, channel itself, there was just so much passion and support behind it that it was inevitable that they could be successful. And they have been successful before. They have won the European Cup, so it's not like they haven't been. But this recent run, as we said, I think a couple weeks ago, has to be right there with its greatest stretch of its history. And if they can somehow get past Real Madrid and get into a final and perhaps finish this job, then you really have to talk about this being the greatest era of Atletico Madrid's history. But it's a big obstacle in front of them. They have gone out to them 3 years in a row, twice in the final. They are the tormentors. I cannot even comprehend what it must feel like to be an Atletico Madrid, like a hardcore Atletico Madrid fan living in Madrid and having to deal with losing to that team in particular every damn year at the point where it hurts the most.
It's their boogeyman. And in French, in Quebec, we would say it's the bonhomme satire. It's their biggest rival, but at the same time, their biggest moment or biggest loss, it's against them too. So you're reminded of it every time. And how fitting would it be for them to reach a final and not play them for once, and having to beat them, having to slay the dragon before getting to the final with a sense of achievement and a sense of destiny even bigger because you slayed the king just before. So I think there's that aspect. We'll see today how it shapes up. On paper, it's a great team, Atleti, as well. You have the Griezmann. You have players that are elevated this club from a good mid-table Spanish club to now competing close to the Liga title and being a Champions League club and being in the semifinal, and for what, the fourth straight year in the semifinal. So that is, there's a lot of stats about this game, about it's two great prolific teams this season. So it's interesting to see how Ronaldo plays today, just being a amazing season for Ronaldo again. It's like almost like it's almost a Ronaldo and Messi fatigue. They're so good all the time, and it's like we're not even surprised anymore. But Atleti has their own great superstars, and if they show up today, maybe it's the year they slay the Giants.
Imagine for a second, for those that are maybe newer to this, and maybe you're not aware of this, if you look, over the last decade, Torres, Aguero, Costa, now Griezmann, look at the immense talent that has come out of Atleti. They haven't been able to keep them. You imagine if they could have kept them. Imagine if they had the money of their crosstown rivals. This could have been one of the most dominant clubs ever if they could have kept that. Now, of course, there's only like a handful of clubs in the world that are able to keep talent at that level, and that's just the reality of the sport. But just, it is really an incredible story of the last decade and a bit of Atletico Madrid and what they've managed to accomplish, coming from near bankruptcy around that time as well. So, as I said, I do have a soft spot for them. I wouldn't say I quote unquote support them, but I will be cheering for them today. That is for certain. And I look forward to that game a great deal. It's going to be a tough gig for them. You have to make Real Madrid the favorite, still defending champions. As we said, again, a couple weeks ago when we talked about the quarterfinals, I don't know if we're quite giving them their due. And if they manage to win this, as I said, then we have to start talking about, not them being the best Real Madrid team of all time. We have to start talking about them being amongst the best teams of all time.
Yeah.
Back-to-back Champions Leagues. It's not something that happens, right?
No, and just contenders in the Liga. We forget how difficult it is to just win the Liga when you have the likes of Barcelona and Atleti rivaling with you day in and day out. You basically have to win out the season to have a chance of winning La Liga. So that's incredible there as well. So they have the potential to do the double, which would be, I think, the triple too. I think they're still in the Copa del Rey. So amazing team. You're right. One of the best ever. Absolutely. Just like who could you compare to? The Barcelona team of a few years ago, and then those are pretty much the best teams of all time now. When we look at it.
At least in the Champions League era. I mean, you go back to some of those classic Real Madrid teams back in the day when the European Cup was what we were doing about it. That Kevin and I are, or not only are we too young, we were literally too young. We weren't born at the time that we're the era that we're looking at. But it's certainly in the Champions League era. If they were to win this year, I have a hard time not arguing that this current group is perhaps the best of the Champions League era. Kevin, let's shift gears a little bit. We wanted to end the show with some funny stuff here. There's a series of tweets that came out yesterday from a dude.
Let's just put some context. It's a journalist out of England, Newcastle, and it says, for every like of my tweet, I will tell you a story that happened surrounding Newcastle that people might not be aware of.
And it just goes out. James Sharples is his name, the journalist's name. It's at Johnny, Jonny, Gabriel, Gabriel. If you want to follow him on Twitter and read this in its whole. But Kevin and I thought we'd share some of these things because Newcastle's history is quite comical. They have they really are the punchline in many ways of English football. Great support. Their fans are spectacularly loyal. We tease because we love here in many ways, but certainly there is a lot of funny stuff that's happened up in the north of England. Here's the first one he has here, Kevin. If you want to just pull them up, maybe we'll just rotate and read a few of them here. But I like the first one he leads off with his director of football, Dennis Wise, vetoing a cut price deal for Bastian Schweinsteiger in favor of loaning a player he'd seen on YouTube. There's one kind of idea that we're looking at this, and this is what it's been like. You want to read a couple there, Kevin?
Yep. All right. Alan Pardew blaming a lack of signings in the summer of 2012 on the idea that too many potential players were busy watching the Olympics.
Yeah. The Secret Santa gifts. Alexander Pistone received a Secret Santa gift of a sheep's heart because he didn't have one of his own. So there's a Secret Santa they gave him.
Well, there's even a worse one where a player received Mein Kampf, a copy of that book as a Secret Santa gift.
Yes. Then, of course, we all remember I'm trying to think of the players where the two players that got a red card a few years. He talks about that. They got a red card for fighting each other on the field. There's a man in many of these things here. Newcastle, here it is. It's Kevin Dyer and Leo Bauer both sent off in a match against Dustinville for fighting each other.
Yeah, what I like is Joe Kinnear going on a scouting trip to Birmingham and coming away impressed by Shane Ferguson, who was on loan from Newcastle. Hey, that guy's good. We should sign him up. Sir, he's ours.
Nobby Solano withholding his number, ringing up Sir Bobby Robson, who was, in charge, and playing his trumpet down the phone to him. So rather than talking, we just played a trumpet down the phone. Oh my heavens! There's a lot of funny stuff in this. Again, it's at Johnny Gabriel. If you want to follow him on the Twitter, you can read all of those things here. But in seriousness, the other thing, they were talking about the expenditure in Newcastle this year and saying that they need to spend about £150 million in order to become a consistent Premier League power. That's the thing about Newcastle is I don't think a lot of clubs, when they get to the Premier League, their vision that they have is to stay. The Stoke model, I'll call it. And Stoke, I always use Stoke because I believe Stoke has probably been the most successful of any of the clubs that sort of snuck their way in and stayed in. You can't get rid of them now. They're never close to relegation. They're never close to Europe either. Really, they're just always in the middle, and it's kind of soulless, but it's in many ways for the fans, I'm sure. But certainly they've been very successful at that. But Newcastle, this is, I think, what makes some of these stories stand out is because I think that they get there and they believe that they have the financial ability, if they could get their house in order, to ultimately compete for a title. And if you look back in the 90s, they were competing at the top at that point.
Yeah, with the likes of Alan Shearer, the biggest recent heyday of Newcastle, you could say. That's what a lot of Newcastle fans that are between 20 and 40 now, that's where they got the passion of that team during the Alan Shearer era in the 90s, I would say.
For sure. And look, I saw a Newcastle strip on the subway yesterday in Toronto. Like, you still see them around. There are tons of Newcastle fans, and you're right. They're usually about 40, which meant that they took up the sport 15 years ago, probably, and Newcastle was amongst the top teams, and they chose them as their team at that point. Or they're from Newcastle, obviously. Lots of people have different reasons, but for a lot, it would have been just what I described. There's nothing wrong with that either. I want to be clear. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And if they were to spend $150 million, I guarantee you that regardless of what happened with that money, they're going to entertain. Rafa's back in the league too. That's going to be fun. There's lots of fun things and lots of excitement to have Newcastle back, because one way or the other, whether they're good or whether they're bad, the Geordies are always going to be entertaining. That's why they had that show, Geordie Shore. Look it up. You can watch it on any of your streaming sites out there. The Jersey Shore equivalent of the UK. It's a little rowdier, though, if that's even possible.
Yeah, you're true. I haven't watched any of those, though.
Okay. You didn't watch Jersey Shore with Suki or Snooki?
No.
Snooki, that was her name.
No, that's when I was glad that I didn't get MTV because I was like, well, wasn't MTV supposed to play music? Anyways, that's a totally
Yes,
different debate.
precisely. Yeah, used to watch that with my ex. She was
Remember
a
when MTV played music? Wow, I feel old.
I want my MTV. All right. Money for nothing and chicks for free. That's going to do it for it today. Kevin, as always, why don't you say goodbye?
Until tomorrow for another edition of Soccer Today. You can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. Give us a if you like to enjoy the show and would like to not have to change the way you listen to the show in the very near future, we would like a pledge, a commitment, a little help, a little pat on the back, a little good job, a little fist bump, a little nod, a little what's up. And the best way you can do it is patreon.com/sports podcasting network. $1 a month goes a long way. And with your help, we can continue to do the show the way it's done right now, not necessarily have to go through a paywall. And until next time, as always, have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.